Hello, Motonauts, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Here we are back again, and I've got a treat for you today. We're going to look at this 60s model Morris Minor, really funny little British car, and I'm in the process of modeling it. It's not done yet, but it looks kind of like a die-cast car or something, so I thought we could use it for a little tutorial to show off a new product that I'm using in my studio now called HDR Light Studio Basic. And basically what you see here is lit entirely using HDR Light Studio Basic. And also I've got a few other things up my sleeve I want to show you. Firstly, I'm going to show you how to render something that looks like this with an alpha output that has a soft shadow underneath it, as well as an alpha output that doesn't have the shadow at all in a single render. I will also show you how in the next render to render it without the car. So then you can render a shadow separate from the car, so that in Photoshop then you can hide, show, modify, do whatever you want to the shadow separately from the car. Very handy to be able to do, and it's actually not difficult at all. So here we go. We got our Morris Minor in place, and I'm actually going to delete some of the previous work that I had done here, and we'll just pretend that I'm starting from scratch. So we'll take our Morris Minor, we'll select this car body, M for material, sorry, and we'll call it car paint, that's good. And let's go back to our preview render. And FYI, I'm hitting 0 on the numpad to expand my preview render to be the full pane here. So I'm going to take my car paint, and first of all, down at the very bottom of this pane, I can set it to double-sided so that everything works better. And then I'm going to add some color, and let's go ahead and make it a nice red color, and turn off the specular. Let's set the reflection amount to 5%, Fresnel to 40%. Clearly this looks real bad. So the reason that looks bad is because in the environment there's nothing to reflect. And we could add geometry for it to reflect, but it's a lot easier to add an HDR. So what we're going to do is add a high dynamic range image, and the way we're going to do that is with HDR Light Studio Basic. I'm going to make a new project just to blank this out. Open up, I'm going to click Render, go over here to Quick Preview, and click Save. And it's going to save it actually to my desktop. Sorry, I went Browse, choose my desktop, choose test.exr, and save. So now we're saving over a file called test.exr on my desktop. So we'll go back here and change my environment. We'll add an image map, and I'm going to click Load. You can't see me do that. It's off your screen. Whoops, not Load Sequence. Add image map, load image. There we go. Test.exr, open. And now everything just turns kind of grayish. Woohoo! Actually, it's a big deal, because what we are looking at now is this, and I'm going to show you exactly what this is. I have, if I click here Render, I will change from Quick Preview to Quick Preview Guides, click Save, and go back to Moto. Automatically updates, that's kind of cool, and everything turns psychedelic colors. Let's look over here, and to the opposite side of the car we have a red line. To our side of the car we have a green line. Behind the car-ish, somewhere, I just saw it, there it is. There's a blue line, very thin one. And if we look up a little bit, we'll see a dotted yellow line. And if you'll recall, if you are paying close attention, in HDR Light Studio we have this orange line, dotted line coming across. We have a red line, green line, and blue line. So the blue line is behind the car, the green line is on our side, and the red line is on the other side. So let's go back to Render, click Quick Preview again, and Save. And let's add a light. So I'll add a rectangular light, drag it to the opposite side of the car, make it kind of wide, and bring it down lowish, and make it pretty bright. I will now, instead of going Render, Save, I will instead hold the Control key and click Render. And then I don't have to, it'll save me a click, basically. Alright, looks pretty nice, right? It's already looking pretty good without practically any work at all. Let's set up a perspective that we kind of like here, and I'll go back to our HDR Light Studio and bring this light a little bit lower down on the horizon, and Control click Render, go back, and now this light is looking kind of neat, but I can see the light in the background. That's annoying to me. I don't like it. So I'm going to duplicate my environment and delete the image that's inside it, and set the environment is set to a constant white. I'd actually like my background here to be constant white no matter what. So now I can go to the environment material and uncheck everything but visible to camera. And in my original environment, I will make it not visible to camera. So now I just see the white background here, and I could make this whatever I wanted. If I want it to be a green background for some strange reason, then there it is as a green background. It looks kind of like a poker table. That's kind of funny. Well, anyway, so I want it to be white. Okay. So there we have it. Now it's separated out. Now we can just tweak our HDR the way we want it. I want this a little bit higher, I think. I think I want to add another light over here, make it pretty wide, pretty narrow, and not very bright. Kind of like my little brother. Wide, narrow, not very bright. I like that. Make it wider, make this wider. And now this one I'm going to set to dark instead of light and turn it way down. So this can actually do the opposite of a light and, you know, add a dark reflector, which can actually be pretty handy as well. And that, when I control click it, we'll go back to Moto. And now we start to get some of that contrast we were wanting. Nice double line reflections. That's starting to look pretty good. So let's go ahead and hit render here, see what we've ended up with. Okay, so I'm going to call that passable. I think it looks good to start with, at least good enough for this tutorial. So you get the idea. Really easy, just going back and forth with HDR Light Studio, and without any work at all, you end up with a nicely lit image. And once I'm ready and I like what I see, then I can change this from quick preview to render at 1500 by 750 or 3000 by 1500 to get a nice big, really high-res image that'll look really nice and crisp when I render this for press or whatever. And we still have this one alpha output that looks pretty good. The reason it looks good, by the way, is because our floor here, by default, if you created a floor material, in fact, let's just do it. Let's go back and select our floor item, M for material, we'll call it floor. I think I have to show this first, actually. M for material, floor, and we can hide it again. Shader tree, go back to our render tab. There we go. I'll select this floor material, we'll set it to white, and 100% diffuse. And that'll do, but the problem is that, first of all, I'm seeing it in my reflection now, which I didn't want. But also, if we render, you're going to see in our render that if I go to my alpha output, we're getting the car, but we're also getting the floor in our alpha, so we're ending up with this big white expanse that's pretty much useless. So what we end up doing, this is a new 401 feature, Moto 401 feature, we'll say add shader, drag the floor above the base shader, select that shader and change the alpha type from opacity to shadow catcher, and now it is a transparent floor. So whereas before it was opaque. So we will look at this rendered image and see, of course, that now, as expected, our alpha has a nice soft shadow underneath it and a car above it. That's fine, but I'd like one other alpha that just has the car and no shadow in it. Way to do that is pretty simple. I have taken my all of my car parts and put them into one group called car. I will right-click that car and say Create Item Mask. Okay, we'll go to our shader tree here. Delete the material that's in the car mask. I'm going to drag the mask above, or just way up here to where our outputs are. Add layer, render output, change that to an alpha, and let's render this puppy and see what we've got. And as we can see, we now have an alpha output, just like we saw before, with a shadow, and another alpha output that does not have the shadow. I will go ahead and point out a Moto 401 bug that was added. Sometimes when you go and you create this item mask, and this just happened to me, I had to go and change the item from car to something else and then back to car again, and then it worked. So if your alpha, if you try this trick and this alpha ends up looking just like that one, then try switching the item from something else and then back again. For some reason it struggles with that. So now I have this separate alpha, and that's handy. But there's another thing I can do. I can add a shader to this, and this is the really cool part. And I can take that shader, look here at its properties, let me? There it goes. And set it to not be visible to camera. Boom. Car gone. So now I can render this, and I get this beautiful shadow that I can now export to Photoshop, put it in one layer, then I'll go back to my other render that has the car in it, and use this output, or this alpha, to cut out the car. So then the car is floating on top of a shadow in a separate layer, so I can adjust each independently. That's really handy. So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you take a look at HDR Light Studio. I think you'll really like it. And it's a really fast way of creating really nice HDR images, which I use pretty much exclusively to light all of my scenes. Lights are much too slow. So take a look at that, and best of luck to you. Have fun.